There was a manga published in 1987, a manga that would have a major movie 20 years later, but looking at it back then, it seemed doomed to fail, being poorly received at best, an oddity. Drawing influence from the popular American action flicks and kung fu fever of the era, the story was a Japanese shonen pastiche on Dracula. At the time, it contended with other soon-to-be huge fighting franchises like Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star, but it had mixed reception. The bizarre story was not one of the best, being less than popular for featuring a foreign-born English protagonist, unlike more popular native-born Japanese heroes. It seemed the saga of Jonathan Joestar, his youth, was doomed to fail. Except, by practice, ability, and time, Hirohiko Araki would be one of the best 20 years later. By 2007, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was entering its 7th part, and Araki's art would soon be featured in the Louvre. The story of Jonathan Joestar was not one of the best, but it was unique enough to begin a 30-year odyssey. The 8-part epic of the Joestars and their eternal antagonist Dio, for at least the first 7 parts. In 2007, most English-speaking fans would only be partially aware of this, if they were aware of it at all. In the past 5 years, JoJo has exploded on the English internet. Before then, it was largely an oddity, some niche manga and a couple of OVAs. More people would know Dio from Mugen than from the actual JoJo anime or manga. Knowing about the series' background was the exception, not the rule. You had not seen much concrete from it unless you were lucky. At best, you had a passing awareness of another Pushpin Planning's 2 JoJo OVA series, released in Japan in 1994 and 2000, then dubbed into English between 2003 and 2007. To the uninitiated, they were, bizarre. There was this whole bit with a severed head, and a ship exploding, and a stone mask, and some Aztecs. And who was this Dio guy? Before the 2011 adaptation, the wider public had no idea. Between 2002 and 2011, the JoJo series was largely contained to the Japanese manga, and, besides fan translations, it was oblique and odd to most. Except, in 2007, a movie was made to remedy that. Intended to serve as a prequel to the, prequel-sequel of the OVAs of JoJo Part 3, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, was released on February 17, 2007. It explained the origins of the antagonism between the Joestars and the eternal vampire Dio. English-speaking fans awaited for it to emerge from across the ocean. Except, it never did. It barely even emerged in Japan. A breath, then it was gone. Wiped from existence. So bad and bizarre, it was basically condemned to destruction, never to leave Japan or even be seen again. To this day, basically no one remembers it. Lost to the waters, and, like the infamous stone mask, all we have left of it are cursed relics of ill repute. Why was a film with such a pedigree so supposedly infamously bad? It should not have been. Produced by another Pushpin Planning, or A.P.P.P for short, the movie was a prequel to the OVA series, a series which A.P.P. had also animated, intended to expand upon the flashbacks seen in the 2000 series, fully adapting the story of Jonathan Joestar and Dio. By the same studio, the movie looked similar to these, produced by most of the same staff with a higher budget. Unlike the OVA series, it would truncate JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood to an hour and 40 minutes, a much larger order for a much higher stakes project. This, and what was rumored to be a troubled and rushed production, was its downfall. It premiered on February 17, 2007, intended to commemorate Hirohiko Araki's 25th anniversary as a manga artist and the JoJo franchise's 20th anniversary. It was not a well-received tribute. Araki was less than pleased according to modern internet folklore. The 100 minutes were a blundering mess that butchered JoJo's first story arc. After running for only a week or so, it was pulled from theaters. With a limited release in Japan, not much of it survives. In this brief period, a few Japanese fans were able to report on the film in reviews and articles. After it was pulled, it was never seen again. According to an urban legend, the movie may have also run in Hong Kong, but it has never been proven. It's unknown if these copies, if they even existed, were legitimate or pirated. If they were, these pirated copies may be the only ones that remain of the film. As, after it was pulled, nothing more was released of the film. It may as well have never existed. Besides some art books, sketches, and music, nothing has ever turned up from it, which makes it so bizarre. We have everything around the film, but the film itself has never turned up. Not even a pirated copy or a cam-ripped version exists. It was made to disappear so fast, nobody could grab anything from it. Was it really such an abomination it needed to be destroyed? Probably not. Everything that survives from the film is subpar, but not particularly awful. You could do worse. Its greatest sin was how abridged it apparently was, rewriting the entirety of Phantom Blood. Never confirmed, but Araki's dislike of it explains the disappearance. He had power to remove it from the theaters after all. By all accounts, he was in attendance for the premiere. If the rumors of Araki's disgust are true, then the film was dead to rights right from the start. What was so bad about it then? We have Japanese sources on it and some physical material, both being substantial enough we can assume a few things about the film beyond just rumor. Shortened for the big screen, A.P.P.P created a story vastly different from the manga. The Phantom Blood film only had about 1 hour and 40 minutes of runtime, or about 100 minutes, compared to the recent 2011 adaptation by David Productions, which clocks in at a total of 3 hours, 27 minutes, or 207 minutes, spread over 9 episodes. The anime adaptation did not have the same budget, but it had double the runtime, double the screen time to adapt 5 manga volumes. The movie had to cut a little more than half of that context. Such truncation meant many elements were cut. The major being Hamon/the Ripple was never explained, turning into battle energy Jonathan used to defeat Dio and his undead minions, with the knights Bruford and Tarkus being mere minions. This also removed the interaction between Bruford and Jonathan, cutting out the Sword of Luck and Pluck, which changed both Jonathan's characterization and his fight with Dio, a final fight which happened alone between just Dio and Jonathan. Many of these cuts, along with the declining animation, hint towards a troubled production. We do not know what state the film was released in, as we have no final copy, but testimony tells the second half of the film was a mess. Plot falling apart and animation declining. The best we can do is examine the leaked 16-minute clip of the film and the trailers. Comparing the leaked opening animation to later scenes from the trailer, we can see a change, not a drastic one, but it is there. Is it just a result of test footage or an unfinished product? Neither was the final product after all. We have no idea at what point in production the trailers were created or released. Both the sound test clip and trailers are incomplete. Still, the decline is noticeable, or is it just a shift in style? There is not much to compare. Both quality and consistency of animation were frequent gripes towards the film. Why did A.P.P., who produced the OVAs, underperform so much? By what survives, the movie does not look awful, but for being produced in 2007, it looks dated, looking more like something produced in the 90s, almost archaic when compared to A.P.P.'s 2000 OVA series. Much of the former staff had a hand in it, but we do not know how much. Was it manpower? We do not know when the Phantom Blood film began production. After the release of the OVAs in 2000, A.P.P. had 2 more projects. The movie Street Fighter Alpha Generations in 2005, and the anime series Fist of the Blue Sky released 2006-2007. Since then, they have only done contract work. Phantom Blood was their last independent project. Was it such a failure it sunk the studio too? Or is there a curse around it? An infamous rumor has insisted a lead animator was murdered in the midst of the film's production, crippling the movie's team in a crunch period. His grieving wife forbid them from continuing it in his style, meaning the movie had to continue in a different direction with new leadership. Also an impossible-to-prove story, but... Except, the movie's greatest sin came from the removal of the iconic Robert E.O. Speedwagon. Both a fan favorite and Araki's own favorite, integral to the plot, writing Speedwagon out of Phantom Blood destroyed the story and any goodwill from fans. Of all criticisms, the removal of Speedwagon is the most repeated, being more famous than the film itself. Credited as the straw that broke the camel's back for Araki. Without Speedwagon, beyond one brief scene, Araki likely felt the story was not the one he had written. So, why did it vanish? No one really knows. Poor reception and panning could not really justify it. As long as you did not know JoJo, it was apparently a serviceable movie. Only one rumor around it adequately explains the disappearance. Araki, by all accounts, was not a big fan of the film. People attribute to him claims that the movie butchered Phantom Blood. It is impossible to turn up any English sources confirming this, so it may or may not be hyperbole. Nothing very much substantiates these claims that Araki was disgusted with it. Only circumstance is what makes it seem likely. Only he would have enough pull and power to remove it from theaters, unless it was just some back-end copyright issue never made public. What does survive of the film? We do seem to have plenty of information on it. Around 18 minutes of footage in total, about 2 minutes from 2 trailers. Both show footage from the entire movie. We do not know when they were produced, or what order the scenes were made or arranged in, but some easy educated guesses can make an outline. Comparing them to the leaked test footage though, the later scenes are degraded to some degree, or it may simply be video quality. The holy grail of footage from the Phantom Blood film comes from Eric Zamora, who uploaded a 16-minute sound test, based off what looks to be incomplete test footage from the film. While it lacks voice acting, this unfinished segment is the largest segment of the film that can still be seen, said to have been given to Zamora by a professor at his university who knew an animator at A.P.P.P. Being generous, we have 18 minutes of footage, 18 minutes of a 100-minute film, a modest 18% of animation, a little less due to repeated scenes. Not a great amount, but better than most. There does exist other material from the film. Sketches and artwork released in magazines and promotional material, a good amount illustrating in detail both character designs and scenes from the film, also shining light on how it developed differently from the manga or anime. The Japanese PS2 game adaptation of the film also survives, with the same rough plot and voice cast. If you are that desperate for an idea of the movie, as, apparently, the prologue cutscene of the game was played before the movie to give exposition on the background and setting of the movie, so they seem pretty similar by all accounts. Art also exists by the director, character designer, and chief animation director of the film, Junichi Hayama. He worked on the OVAs, so he had experience with the franchise, meaning Hayama was not new to the role. Illustrations he's published also show he's a fan. So, if you ever wanted to know what Part 4 and beyond would look like by A.P.P.P., look at Hayama's work. The film's surviving musical theme is perhaps the most interesting aspect of it, though. Voodoo Kingdom, by the Japanese hip-hop group Sold Out, was intended to serve as both Dio's theme and the movie's anthem. It's not something I would associate with JoJo, though. Maybe the later parts, but not Part 1 or the tone A.P.P.P seem to be going with. Even for something as sincerely absurd as JoJo. As Dio's theme, it fits, and the song is enjoyable, but it seems kind of out of place in the movie. And even if it never really made it to the public, the group would eventually benefit from it in some way. What's the conclusion? The odds of the film ever re-emerging are rather slim. Beside being forgotten, the film is still a black mark, a low point in JoJo to most. The internet agrees with this assumption, but I will hold off judgment until I see it, even if that day never comes. According to leaked storyboards, even a sequel was planned, a more faithful adaptation of Battle Tendency, but its fate is even more obscure than the Phantom Blood adaptation. Besides these sketches, there's no proof it was anything more. Still, it is interesting to wonder what it would have been. Did Araki force this film to fail? No, there's no proof. Plus, the movie was doing poorly before he stepped in. If he did step in. Some proof may exist in Araki's book on horror movies that he was involved, but there's no translation. So, if there's proof, it would be in a book on movies, but it's still highly unlikely. The best hope of ever seeing it is if a pirated copy ever emerges, or someone ever leaks it from behind the scenes. And, after soon to be a decade, that is looking more and more unlikely to happen. So saying anything definite on it is pretty worthless as of now. At least some party did benefit from it. Araki, in apology, tried to repay Sold Out for their contributions. To make amends, Araki did the artwork for the group's single, Catwalk, which is pretty cool, and it looks oddly familiar.
Killer Queen 第3の爆弾バイツァーダスト
He also named the characters Weeka People and a Magenta Magenta from Steel Ball Run after Sold Out songs, respectively, both payment and tribute. Indirect references to a forgotten failure. Will the Phantom Blood film ever emerge out of the shadows? We are nearly past a decade of its disappearance, and still no word or reference to it. JoJo seems bigger than ever. Perhaps it is time to bring this one skeleton out of the closet, or the vampire out of its coffin. Simply show it to a wider public to appreciate what JoJo has become. a forgotten relic to act as tribute towards a future heritage. I cannot say, but such a thing should be released. Just to be seen. Ah, what a beautiful possibility. Chew!
He never sleeps, the judge. He is dancing, dancing. He says that he will never die.